So, as always, we'd like to thank our audience and everybody that supports us financially through donations as a member. But if you're not sure how to get involved with the UK column, have a look at the webpage, have a look at donations or monthly memberships, annual memberships, or a lifetime subscription. And of course, you can help us by making a purchase through the shop. And we have got health products via Clive de Cole, and we make a small percentage on sales through Clive. Now, the key thing for us is that we're putting out information for people to share, to get the information and the facts out, and you can help us do that. If you pass on the material, please give the UK column a mention. Now, tomorrow, we've got a fantastic interview, which Charles Mallet did with Jonathan Marshall, Thinking with Your Heart. This is essentially about fighting the anti-nature agenda. And that's Tuesday, the 8th of April at 1:00. And I know it's a really interesting interview, and hawks and horses come into it. So there's a lot to this. And if you need a bit of relaxation in understanding what's happening, that is probably one of the interviews to have a look at. Now, we're delighted to be able to say that today we have a little report from our weekend conference, the Deep State, that took place in Cheltenham. It was a fantastic day. We enjoyed it. Everybody who spoke to us said they enjoyed it. And my goodness, some fantastic speakers. Let's have a look at this video report, thanks to Gemma Cooper and the media team that were with us.
From the moment the doors opened, the atmosphere was buzzing. More than 300 people had travelled to Cheltenham to hear UK Column's take on the Deep State. Some had even travelled as far as Australia and the United States to hear what our speakers had to say. Delegates enjoyed tea, coffee, snacks and socialising before settling into their seats for a day of mind-blowing information. Our speakers didn't disappoint. It was one truth bomb after another. First up was activist and campaigner Raja Mir. He kicked off with an explosive exposé about institutionalised corruption. He got a standing ovation. Raja was followed by UK Column's very own editor and co-founder Brian Gerrish. He revealed information he's never told anyone before until now.
This is sedition. This is treason. We were told. What were the security services doing? Where were they? I think they were complicit.
With the Deep State firmly in focus, delegates were treated to their very own UK Column donut in the break, a nod to the odd-shaped building just up the road, which houses the British Security and Intelligence Agency, GCHQ. Were they listening in today? What do you think? The breaks also gave an opportunity to buy books and merchandise from specially invited guests, and perhaps most importantly of all, the chance to talk to fellow audience members and forge new friendships. But soon it was back to the action, with Alex Thompson talking about his time at GCHQ and giving his insights about the British establishment. Then lunch, a chance to chew over the morning's content and reflect.
What do you think of the event so far today?
I'm really enjoying it, yeah, very insightful, particularly Raja this morning. Really, really enjoyed that. Quite harrowing, actually, and I say enjoy, it's not quite enjoy, but you know what I mean. I think it's been exceptionally well organised. Look forward to the next one.
Wonderful day, sun is shining, and everyone chatting. And I think, I noticed that at Bristol, where we didn't have access to outdoor space. But here, that adds a certain expansiveness to discussion. And how wonderful it is just to be surrounded by people with whom one can turn effortlessly and say a joke or make a reference, and not check yourself, not second guess your interlocutor, that kind of thing. There is a real ease in that, and I think we only discover it when we come here.
Well, we can see the sky, can't we? And there's no chemtrails, which is quite nice. But yeah, it's brilliant. It's worth every penny. Look at the people, it's just a bunch of wonderful misfits of mad uncles and aunts and fathers and whatever else and mothers, and it's just joy. Absolute joy.
After lunch, a UK column panel discussion with questions from the audience. Then a much-anticipated presentation from Patrick Henningsen, a recent return to UK column's Friday afternoon news show after a stint away. He went down a storm. The final speaker of the day was GCHQ whistleblower Catherine Gunn. She too had the audience on their feet. It was an extraordinary presentation, rounding off an extraordinary day. But it wasn't over yet. Ticket holders joined the UK column team and our speakers for an evening buffet, social and some music. A chance to relax with like-minded people.
These sorts of events are massively important to bring people together. For me, that's what it's all about, is finding people. And it's been lovely today. Really enjoyed it.
The unanimity you get when people get together, which you can't get on a screen, is just so important. And it's what I think most of the big dogs fear, because when we're together and working together and thinking together, we're much more dangerous than if we're behind screens and just a number of followers behind somebody who's bringing across a message. So it's hugely important.
It's spiritually good for us all, I think. And it makes you think that you're not alone, and that maybe that we can fight some of this madness that's thrown at us if we all stick together. The presenters and the interviewees, the interviewers, they all do a fantastic job. And you can just talk to them like they're your friends and always have been your friends at an event like this.
The team themselves, I'm so impressed with their big hearts, actually. You can feel the authenticity, the love and the respect that they have for each other, the care for humanity and what's going on in the world, and their pursuit of the truth. I'm always blown away by the sort of phenomenal research that they all do, their knowledge. It's really quite extraordinary, and I think they're in a league of their own.
The raw honesty and clarity that they provide, I think, is priceless. If only all media was like that, maybe we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in.
UK column saved my life, and B, it's important because of the camaraderie here. The number of people that have come up and said hello, that have, we've always spoken to in chat for a long, long time. To actually meet them and to share your whole origin story and your experiences and the information that UKC gives us, it just takes it to a different level. And you can't get that on chat, and you can't get that through a screen. You've got to be here, folks, to experience it.
The event was so successful, plans are now underway for the next UK column on location in the autumn and a residential weekend next year. Gemma Cooper for UK column in Cheltenham.
Well, there we are. A wonderful event and, of course, more planned. So if you didn't come to that one, stay with us because you'll have the opportunity in the future. Now, I'd also say that if you didn't see Saturday's event, you weren't there, that's still available as a live stream, which you can get through the UK Column website. That's £20 for non-members, £18 for UK Column members. But the next best thing to have a look at that live event. Now, Diane, let's bring you back with us because you've got more to say about material that's been up on the UK Column and the good work of our authors of the written reports.
Yes, thanks, Brian. That was a wonderful video. I'm kind of overwhelmed by all the compliments that we just received in that video. I've just seen it for the first time. That was amazing. But I also want to make sure that, again, because I'm working with so many wonderful authors that have giving us a lot of written content for our website as well, to make sure that all of these are highlighted, and also because I have some additional information to add for another article that was published recently, because it's a real pleasure for me as the editor to be working with our authors when they're topics that I know about and can maybe make suggestions, although, of course, we're a completely free speech platform when it comes to their work. But I do want to mention just as well, since I've taken over in February, that we have published several written articles that you can find if you search the UK Column website, and we'll provide some links as well in the show notes. And these range all the way from replacement migration, written by Simon Elmer, which is actually a republication of part of his own book that he published before this was in the UK Column website. We have an article from Mark Anderson about Guernsey, the tiny island that beat the big bankers for 20 years of monetary freedom. We have articles from Charles Mallet, including farmers' protests the wrong target as an earlier one. Another article called COVID Vaccines and New Mechanisms of Serious Pathology by Dr. Mike Williams. An article about Mark Carney, who's the new technocratic globalist Prime Minister of Canada. Post-Democracy in Germany, about the constitutional crisis happening in Germany. That's by Jobst Landgräbe. We have another article with Charles called The Church of England in the Room with Big Tech. And the one that is just from a couple of days ago, The Evolution of the Serial Chemical Weapons Narrative and the Road to Ghouta. That's part 2 of a chemical weapons, a narrative series by Dr. Piers Robinson. And finally, the one that I want to focus on is one by Martin Edwards called The Great Transition and NGO Alliances, Charting a Course Towards the Rocks of Net Zero. And the reason that I want to talk about this one is because there is a lot of information in this article, but there is also some information that I want to provide that kind of contextualizes what he's done with it and where it can potentially go the further you dig deeper. And this is what I think we're so good at UK Column, not just me, obviously, but all of us, that we go deeper than the typical media. And even articles and videos that sometimes viewers send to us from other non-mainstream sources, even if they are alternative or independent sources, I would have to say that a lot of them I personally wouldn't use in my own reporting because they don't go that far into the depths that we go into to kind of figure out where things actually come from and to look at the original sources as well. So actually looking at policy documents and we are able to stay away from all of the sensationalism and all of the, oh, look at this is really scary and exciting, because we're going to actual sources and no one can dispute us, even if they try to. So in this article by Martin Edwards, he talks about the Planetary Health Alliance as an organization, which is, quote, a consortium of over 480 universities, non-governmental organizations, research institutes, and government entities from 80 plus countries around the world. And I'm just going to read a couple of bits from this article so that you can see where I'm going to with this. Its origins can be traced to 2015, when the Rockefeller Foundation and Lancet Commission, which is the Lancet, which is a medical journal working with the Rockefeller Foundation on planetary health, published a report called Safeguarding Human Health in the Anthropocene Epoch in the Lancet Journal. It defines Anthropocene, if you don't know this word already. If you do know it, that's great. If you don't, you need to catch up on your globalist terminology. It is a proposed name for a new geological epoch demarcated as the time when human activities began to have a substantial global effect on the Earth's systems. In the executive summary of this report, the authors talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, and they say that reasons for hope include the advent of the SDGs and the post-2015 development agenda, which provide an important opportunity to address these trends and to tackle health, social, environmental challenges in integrated ways. The part that's really interesting and what really got me going as not just an editor, but as a reporter, it discusses 4 alternative scenarios of future development that exemplify alternative worlds that might emerge from the present. The first 2 scenarios represent an evolution of conventional worldviews. For example, market forces exemplifies market-centered growth or oriented globalization, whereas policy reform tells of a government-led redirection of growth towards sustainability goals. It says that the alternative scenarios presented in the report envisioned a fundamental restructuring of the global order, authoritarianism and fragmentation in fortress world, and positive transformation in the great transition, in which material consumption is reduced but is more equitable than the present. And another report, which is shorter, that talks about this great transition scenario, the future scenario of the great transition, can be found in a report from October 2021 from the Planetary Health Meeting. They met in Sao Paulo, and while the rest of us were locked up under COVID restrictions, they decided to go to Sao Paulo and talk about the planet. And they said at that time, they called this fundamental shift in how we live on Earth the Great Transition. Achieving this will require rapid and deep structural changes across most dimensions of human activity, including how we produce and consume food, energy, manufactured goods, how we construct and live in our cities, and how we consider and measure growth, progress, and development, and govern ourselves. It will take practitioners, scholars, and policymakers across every dimension of human activity working together. Now, the reason that was interesting was because they concluded their report talking about how else it's going to help us achieve the Great Transition. And when I saw that, I remembered a report that I did back in September 2024 about the United Nations Summit of the Future. And working backwards from the Summit of the Future, which happened last year or in the last several months, that I went back to a globalist, a little known globalist, but a very influential one called Dr. Paul Raskin from Yale University. And he was actually a member of the Club of Rome in the past, and we just found that out recently. I want to go back and play a couple of clips to show where this came from, because the reports that were highlighted in Martin's report didn't really mention Paul Raskin, but he's the one, and his organization called the Tellus Institute was the one that did this. So my question is, are the globalists plagiarizing each other essentially? But let's play my clip that I showed back in September on the news first, please.
When we discuss scenarios, we talk about three broad channels radiating out into the future. One we call conventional worlds, basically an evolutionary sequence of events despite hiccups like the current meltdown, that the basic paradigm and values persist into the future. The second channel is barbarization, in which markets and policies are unable to cope with the crises, and the chaos and social disruption and the environmental deterioration that is induced by conventional worlds. And you have futures of catastrophic disruption. And the third we call great transitions, where people rise to the possibilities, to the promise of this planetary phase with new values and new institutions, and development steers towards a more fortunate form of civilization.
So he wrote a book or the Tellus Institute, I guess, really wrote a book that was published in 2016 called Journey to Earthland, in which he further sort of develops these ideas about the Great Transition. And what he says is that global consciousness, cultural experimentation, popular struggles for peace, justice, and sustainability urge a great transition. Which tendency will dominate? So we have these different scenarios that we can choose from. And he said that the Great Transition, after a period of gestation, could rapidly unfold in a whirlwind of change. As dominant norms lose their sway and system elements and structures begin to crack, the revolutionary moment will have survived. If well prepared, oppositional and visionary movements can influence the anatomy of the kind of earthland that emerges from the tumult. So let's play this next clip, which is from the same original video, which I haven't played on the news previously, which shows exactly what kind of earth Dr. Raskin envisions for us.
Because humanity has found a way to balance the imperatives of global responsibility with diversity and pluralism in modes of culture and development. When we take our trips to outer space and we look back, we see an integral blue planet. We don't see imaginary lines of states. And so that this globalism, this sense of the Earth as a natural unit for a human organization and identity, is some ways more profound than are the imaginary boundaries of nation state.
So he says in this book as well, going on, that the choices we make, the actions we take now before catastrophes erupt, old institutions crumble and new ones solidify, are decisive for keeping progressive options open. This news may be disheartening, comforting, or inspiring, but cannot be ignored for that too would be a choice. So, Brian, I just want to say that, what we're hearing here and what we can see in these reports is that Paul's actually talking about what the globalists want us to do, what to do with this agenda. We talk about this constantly on the news, which is their ultimate goal, which is to destroy the nation state and have Earth be a big sort of blue and green blob of existence. We've talked about this frequently on UK.com, will continue to do so. But my point here is that if people want to go deeper into what we report on, a lot of this will be available in the written articles, which we simply just don't have time to do when we publish videos and news broadcasts for 3 hours a week. But if you want more depth, you can always go into this amazing archive that we have of written reports.
Diane, thank you very much for that. An excellent point. Huge amount of material on the UK Column website, and we use it ourselves as an archive very often when we are reporting today. We go and look at what we were saying 10, 15 years ago.